Good morning. Hello. How are you? Just going to zoom in a bit there. Look like I'm miles away, don't I? Oh, we'll be all right. Be all right. There you go. Hope you're doing well. Just pour some coffee, decaf. There you go. Interesting. I do like my coffee, and I've discovered that decaf coffee these days is really nice compared to years ago when I tried decaf coffee and it was a bit dodgy. I've got a sore throat, just if you're wondering why I'm a bit kind of Barry White. Lots of people won't get that cultural reference, will they? That's the problem these days. My cultural references are all askew, but never mind. I had a lovely day out yesterday afternoon out with my friend Paul. And, there are people, who you have in your life, aren't you, who when you spend time with them, you just feel inspired to crack on and do things or to try things or whatever. And not necessarily the things you were talking about, but there's just something about some people in your life who kind of just enhance it to the point where you, come on, yes, I can do that. We need those people in our lives, don't we? It's really important. So I had a good day, but I've ended up with this sore throat because we were out in public. I've done a COVID test and I am not COVID positive. So there you go. That's all good, isn't it? And it's Friday. And as you might have heard me say before, this Friday is the most important day of next week. I love that. Something pops into your head and you think, that's brilliant. I mean, I don't have many brilliant ideas, to be fair. But that was the one that I really liked. And I use it all the time in my talks because it's true. Because there's a couple of things, I suppose, I'm going to briefly talk about this Friday is the most important day of next week. But then I'm going to talk about our weekends because I think preparation is key, isn't it? We were talking about that yesterday, Wednesday, a little bit about preparing for things. And preparation is absolutely key. There's a few things that come to mind when I say that. One is I try my best to leave things in such a state that they're ready for the next time you need to use them, like the lawnmower in the garden. Okay, so you don't leave it all caked up with stuff and you don't leave it all in a bit of a rubbish order. You put the flex away properly and you empty it and you do all them kind of things. So next time, it's a smooth transition into cutting the grass because it's ready. It's ready to go. Sometimes I think in my past, I've just kind of left things kicking about. Just, I'm finished with that now. Leave it. And then you go back to use it and you think, I can't use this the way it is, and like things like the kitchen and, everything really. Leave it as you need it when you're going to need it next. And I think that kind of fits with that run through the finish line, doesn't it? Finish off those little jobs, run through the finish line. Don't think, well, I'm done now, I'll tidy up later, because you won't. And then you'll find, those paintbrushes you find in the back of the shed that are all caked with paint and stuff or varnish or whatever. And now you can't use the paintbrush. So now you can't do the thing you were going to do. So now you've got to go to the shops. And by the time you go to the shops and buy a new paintbrush, you think, well, I've got time to do the thing now, So leave things. So that's these two ideas. One, this Friday is the most important day of next week, is that there's evidence that suggests that if you leave everything in a controlled order, ready for next week, not only do you hit efficient productivity on Monday morning, rather than, as lots of people describe me, I ask this question a lot when I'm working with people, rather than people kind of coming back to work on Monday, tidying everything up, organizing everything, and then getting to efficient productivity on a Tuesday. If you do all that on a Friday afternoon, when actually you're at a bit of a low productivity ebb anyway, then what you find is on Monday you're up and running kind of straight away, and that's good. That's good for us. We feel as though we're getting at it really quickly, so that's really important. But there's another thing. Coffee slip. There's another thing, which is, what do you do with your weekends? And one of the other things that penny drop moments for me from reading the work of other people, is that our mindset for weekends tends to be that this is my time now. I deserve this time, and you do. I deserve this time to do nothing because I've worked really hard during the week. And you do, to a point. Obviously, we deserve rest and recuperation when we're working hard, and rest and recuperation, as you know, is something I talk about all the time, and something that we need to do to recover well. But I shift my emphasis from recover from the previous week to recover and prepare for the following week. Because then you tend to be more motivated. I think when you're thinking, well, it's my time, I'm recovering from last week, I've worked hard, now I'm going to do nothing, then you do nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of that, there's nothing wrong with some doing nothing. Doing nothing is really good for us. Activates that default mode network in our minds that I've talked about, where our minds, our kind of subconscious mind does work on stuff without us even having to think about things. So that's really important that we do that. But see that as something that's preparing you for next week. I'm resting so that I'm ready for next week, because one of the things that I often say, don't I, or I say in my presentations anyway, is that there are two things you have to do before you manage time and task. One is, as far as possible, manage your emotional responses to things. So those emotional responses that we label stress, often, overwhelm, anxiety, those kind of things that we bundle up and badge as stress. We have to try and manage those emotional responses through techniques that I'll talk about somewhere else. But then we've got to do that. But then we've got to manage our energy, because if you respond emotionally rather than practically, then emotional responses drive they drive confusion and brain fog and all those kind of things. If you respond emotionally, we tend to get caught up in the emotions so much that we then stop moving forward with things, because we're dwelling on the emotion. I feel angry, I feel upset, I feel tired, I feel frustrated. We dwell on that rather than thinking, well, let's crack on with this. So I'm not talking about being devoid of those emotions. I'm just talking about being able to control them. And there are things we can do. And also, and again, this is this idea of using your weekend to prepare for next week. And why rest in there is so important is that what we want to do is have as much energy stored, if you like, as much energy available to us as possible to get on with the things we need to get on with. So we need to be constantly topping it up. And I always think of parents with young kids when I'm talking about this kind of thing, because it's easy for me to spend the whole weekend preparing because my boys are in their 20s. But even within the pockets of time, and even in the things we do with our children, we need to find ways to make those relaxing, and we need to find some space, brief moments, even 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, half an hour if you can get it, to do things that are replenishing of your energy. It's really important. It's really important to keep our energy levels as high as possible. I've got a list here of things you can do. Just knock this up before I started. And these are things that I was going to say these are things that I do. The caveat is these are things that I attempt to do, right? 80%, remember, 80% guy, right? Just like kind of, let's get it right 80% of the time, we'll do all right. So mindfulness and relaxation techniques, breathing, meditation, breathing work, getting outside, that's another one I've got next. But those kind of things that take our minds away from stuff, or immersing ourselves. That's mindfulness, isn't it? Immersing ourselves completely into some sort of task. And I was over on my Patreon page, where for now everything's free. So go and have a look, see what I'm doing. I'll put a link underneath. I did a guided meditation the other day, and I was over the moon when one person turned up. It was lovely, because I didn't expect anybody to. So that was massive. And lots of people said they wanted to come, but it was a bad time. So anyway, so on that, I'm going to also do it next week. I've got another one at on Thursday morning, 8:15. I'm going to try that out as a time, but I'm also going to come up with an evening one and maybe a lunchtime one. Don't know, what you think. Be interested to find out what you think if you haven't watched this. But what I was thinking about when I was thinking about doing that was how timeless that is. People have been meditating, taking themselves away, plonking themselves down under a tree or whatever, or in an open space or in a quiet room, and embarking on a journey of taking themselves inward to discover something about themselves, to find an inner peace, to just breathe, just return themselves to their breathing. So mindfulness, meditation, relaxation, really important. And there's loads of scientific data on that about how it changes and shapes your brain and changes your emotional response. And then I've already mentioned this: outdoor activities, weekends, get yourself outside into nature. We have a cognitive response, an emotional and cognitive response to being outside in the natural world. So get out. I'll be doing park run in the morning. I'll be waddling around park run, trying to run all the way around, and but it's really good to set you up for the weekend, as well as kind of maintaining a good level of health. Healthy meal planning fits in with that. What are you going to eat next week? Because if you don't plan your meals, you will grab whatever's available, and whatever's available, out there on the garage forecourts and in the shops, there is healthy stuff there, but it's easier to grab the unhealthy stuff, isn't it? So plan that, meal prep, batch cook, those kind of things. And then one of the things that I'm trying to do is this idea of digital detox, is just to be away from the constant chatter. I was going to say the constant chatter of your smartphone, but the constant chatter of the world, that's going back to the meditation thing, isn't it? Have a digital detox, even if you just do it for a couple of hours, where you put your phone to one side. What I'm trying to do now on a night, and I've succeeded with this, I think maybe 3 nights this week, and the other nights just because I've took my eye off the ball, is to put my phone, when I'm relaxing on an evening, put my phone out the way. Because if I don't, whenever Christine gets up and goes in the kitchen, I check my phone. Nothing's happened. You know what I mean? Nothing's happened. There's nothing there to see. Or when the adverts are on the telly, or we're fast forwarding through the adverts, that's what you do now, and fast forwarding through the adverts, pick my phone and have a look, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there of any great note to see. Well, there might be, but I could look at it all. I could look at all the relevant stuff in 2 minutes, right at the end of the night, or even the following morning, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to do that, because for all I appear to be anti phones, smart devices, I do love mine, and it's really useful and it's really helpful for lots of things, but it ruins the moments that we're trying to create for ourselves and with our families. So think about that. Think about just putting your phone, maybe Sunday night, maybe Sunday morning, whatever. I used to go to church as a lad. My parents still do, and there was something about, on a Sunday morning, taking yourself away from everything for an hour. Something about that. I don't go to church now. I'm not a person of faith anymore, particularly. But I think there were some things that were engineered into the fabric of society. And religion, with all its flaws, was one of those things that had some positive impacts, didn't it? Yeah. So, that was a bit of a detox back then, to take yourself away and reflect inwardly. Prayer is very similar to meditation, isn't it? So all of these self-care strategies, and then there's loads of things that you could do, like, and remember though, I talked about this, some of these strategies are hedonistic self-care strategies. They're not largely going to shift you in the long term, although the small steps will accumulate, but they're not going to shift you quickly in the short term. They might shift you in the long term, I suppose, to contradict myself there, but they might shift you in the long term by doing them over and over again, repeatedly. But you have to do all the other things, the eudaimonic self-care strategies of discovering your inner self, finding out who you are, finding out what your why is, all of those kind of things. They're really important. But things like hobbies, journaling, reading, baking, sewing, crafts, whatever, they've got a place. They've got a place. They're not going to overturn everything, but they can be restful, because anything that takes your attention away from everything else could be constituted as rest, even if you're actively doing something. So they're important things. Although we can't overstate the fact that there are some more larger underpinning principles. Make sure, one of the problems with weekends is sleep. We tend to lie in a bit later, maybe some of us, or we go to bed later because we can, because there's no work the next day. But actually, if you go to bed later and you've got kids, you're up at the same time anyway, aren't you? And actually, the evidence is to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time, day in, day out, is actually much better for us in terms of the quality of our sleep. And then what ends up happening is, if you do have a lie-in on a Saturday or a Sunday, is you end up not being able to get to sleep on the Sunday night because you've slept a bit later. That's one of the problems. So stick to the same sleep pattern. Stick to the same sleep pattern over the weekend. Get some exercise in. Exercise helps you sleep. So do all of those things. Loads of other things. Creative expression. Do something creative. Immerse yourself. I've gone through various phases of. I create music a lot anyway, but I've gone through various phases of painting and arty kind of stuff, drawing and stuff, which I'm not very good at, but that's not the point. The point is, it takes your mind away. Sit and relax to some music, do those kind of things. And here's an interesting one, and I'm going to do this weekend because I've got my tax return to do. Financial planning and budgeting. I don't talk about this very often, and I don't think we like to talk about it very often, but there's something about spending half an hour or an hour on a weekend getting your finances in order, figuring out how you're going to manage the following week, what you're going to do. Have you got any slack? Have you not got any slack? What does that mean? All of those kind of things, because it relies on David Allen's kind of premise of control it or it will control you. So if you've had a look at your money, if you had a look at your finances, and you think, well, that's where I'm at, this is where I'm at, then even if that place is, a bit tight, as it is for a lot of us at the minute, very tight for many, at least you know what it is. You're controlling it. And I know this is a difficult area to talk about, because that might, I don't know, I don't want that to sound patronizing, but David Allen would say, if you're controlling it, if you're in charge of it by kind of having oversight of it, you feel better about it, because at least you know what it is. So that's one other thing you could maybe do. And I suppose finally, things like gratitude and volunteering and those kind of things that make us feel good about ourselves, we can do a little bit of that over the weekend. That's also good too. So there you are, loads of ideas. But remember, what you're doing is you are relaxing, resting for and preparing for the following week, not from the previous week. So there you go. So take care and have a good weekend, and I'll see you on the other side of it, hopefully.